For a moment in time, Among Us was the biggest game in the world, a game that was everywhere, seemingly played by everyone, one that you couldn't escape even at your local mall. It was a zeitgeist game, forever connected to a particular culture and moment in time.
Among Us is a pretty easy game to understand because at its core it's basically just schoolyard tag. The one big difference is, in tag, you know who you're supposed to run away from, whereas in Among Us, you're not quite sure.
The imposter's job is to kill the rest of the crew before being found out, while the crew's job is to come to a consensus on who the imposter may be and eject them from the ship, either by spotting them in the action of killing a crewmate, or by catching them out while they're suspicious during the meeting phase. Unlike Fortnite before it, Among Us wasn't a product of a large studio, or an attempt to bandwagon a popular game design trend. It was originally a mobile party game, the type of game you'd use to pass the time after inviting over a group of friends. But thanks to an update that added online multiplayer and a handful of streamers around the world, it suddenly became the biggest game on the planet, a way for friends to spend time with each other, when the last thing anyone was doing was inviting people to their house. In this documentary, we're going to explore exactly how Among Us came to take over the world, and more importantly, talk to the people at the centre of that storm. A group of young friends who suddenly found themselves at the helm of one of gaming's biggest online hits.
So how did this relatively basic looking game made by a handful of people become bigger than the biggest games on Earth? Well, like so many games we've covered here on Noclip, the story of Among Us starts on Newgrounds.
My name is Marcus Bromander. I'm the co-founder of Innersloth. Originally, I was the game designer, lead artist, musician, sound effects guy. I created a Newgrounds account in 2007, I think, and my page was empty, and I was like, oh, I should put something up. And I had this little, I guess it was an interactive movie that I made called Crossing the Pit, but there's only 4 choices, so I was like, that's not enough. So I added 4 more and put it up and got some pretty good feedback, and it was really exciting to see people play something that I made. So I just kind of got inspired from there to keep putting up stuff on Newgrounds. I remember particularly, there was one person that I recognized that was a popular person. I'm like, oh, they actually watched my 2.5 out of 5 rated cartoon and gave me feedback. This is awesome. I was able to convert my old games to mobile. The previous games were all in ActionScript 2, so I had to learn ActionScript 3. But then after that, I started working with Forrest in Unity. I needed someone that knows how to code, and he needed someone that knows how to draw, so it kind of worked out.
So the really early days, it was just Marcus and I. We had met in college, and we wanted to make games, and so we filled each other's gaps. Him being an artist and me being a programmer. We released a very small game called Dig to China, just kind of plopped it out there, and it got views, so that was sort of a success. And then sort of a long hiatus, a lot of failed prototypes as we tried to scope up again. And we were both working. I was working full-time and he was working full-time on Henry Stickmin. More or less that's around it was 2017, and we were just coming off of a failed prototype called Denis, which there are still remnants around. We got it through Steam Greenlight at the time. We got it through Greenlight and worked on it for another 3-6 months, something. It wasn't the game that we wanted to make. And then when we tried to push it in the direction of the game that we wanted to make, it wasn't fun. We do a lot of fun-driven development where okay, is everyone having fun? If these 2 people are opposed, is this person having way more fun than this person? That sort of stuff. And Denis we couldn't balance the fun. We went on a long hiatus while Marcus was finishing up the 4th Henry Stickmin game. After that, when I quit Microsoft, we did try Denis one more time with a new fresh look, and we only took 1 month.
But we just couldn't make it fun enough. It was okay, but it wasn't quite as fun as we would want. So we were okay, let's give this one 2 more weeks of design thinking, or we do this new idea that I had pitched called Space Mafia. The Among Us idea came from, I'd watched John Carpenter's The Thing. I really liked the concept of like someone hiding in plain sight and you don't know who you can trust. And then I thought about what if you could link that to like a Jackbox type of mobile experience that you can just get together with your friends and play. And I pitched that. Forrest and Amy were both excited about it, but we were like, we should at least try the other game, see if it works, because we put so much time in. If not, we'll just go to this new idea. And we just ended up like scrapping all the different game ideas and going just straight onto Among Us.
Starting with Among Us, Amy came on board for extra UI and promo art support.
So we had her do all of the task design and the UI and like promo art. She did the design of the tasks as well, though, so like coming up with how they should work and stuff. And then I handled all the like character design and skins, and 2 of the 3 stages were designed and done by me.
Among Us was a game that was meant to be really short. It was only supposed to take like 6 months. We knew it would be sort of not a really high performer because we made it to be local multiplayer and mobile, and that's like really niche, right? We did that, and it took about the right amount of time. We released it, and it was fun enough that when people came to us and said, I really want to play your game, but it needs online support, we extended it. And so we stuck with it like 3 times after we thought, this is a complete game. We're just going to move on to the next one.
Among Us was born from a real-life role-playing game called Assassin, which is popular in college dorms. In Assassin, players try to eliminate one another while others hide in an effort to become the last surviving player. Similar in a way to the tabletop games like Mafia, where the focus of the game is a mixture of deception, strategy, and moment-to-moment problem solving.
Now, Space Mafia is technically the code name for Among Us. That's what if you go on the Google Play URL, that's what it says in there. There's a game that we used to play in person. It's basically in-person Mafia, where you get your role with a card and then you walk around a dark house with your friends, and like whoever is the killer will go up and go like that to you, and you have to flop dead, and then you can hide the bodies and stuff. But the problem was always like finding an empty house with a good layout, and you have to wait until nighttime. There's just a lot of things.
Marcus had played this game. What I now know is just called Assassin. It's the form of a mafia where you run around a house or a yard and have to physically draw your fingers across people's necks to kill them. And then you can like drag the bodies around. And when someone runs across one, they yell out, dead body, and you start the meeting phase, which is just normal mafia. The goal was basically to fix the difficult or unfun parts. 2 things like stuck out to us. One is you need like an interesting physical space. Whenever someone would move within that friend group, they'd be like, there's like loops, like you have a kitchen island, you can go around here and that's interesting. You have like this dead end, that's really cool. Like there's these layouts of houses that work really well for Assassin. And then like there are ones that just don't, like big open areas where you can, even in the dark, see everything. That's boring, right? We wanted to make sure that, you could play the game anytime with your friends, sort of Jackbox style, right? Whether or not you have like an appropriate house or whatever. A lot of what the non-assassins do is they just walk around, like they kind of have to take risks and just do something for a while until someone dies and then the body is found. And so assumedly you're like looking for the body, but like in the first few moments of the game, there's nothing to do. That was sort of the other thing, is we wanted to give everybody a goal so that it wasn't boring for anyone at any point in time. The first version of the game was like super different. It was super sweaty. You had to run around all the time and like fix tasks in order to keep the ship together. Otherwise, the imposters would just immediately win. And so you were constantly doing stuff to the point where you couldn't look for bodies or notice anything. That's when we sort of moved it back towards, traditional Mafia and said, okay, what if the tasks are basically a timer for the imposter to keep things flowing, but you don't have to do them. There's no strong impetus.
So, before we had Skeld, we had a prototype that was just like black squares with red circles or whatever. And the tasks were different in that you could do them anytime, and they were just like progress bars that constantly were deteriorating, and you had to like go do the task to fill it back up. We had like shields where if shields went too low, the whole ship would start to shake. But they all had like an adverse thing. So like the imposter could go and just like do a really bad job on the task to make it drop really fast. We found that assigning people tasks gave everyone more directive instead of like, someone else will fix this. Now you know, like, okay, I have to do these 4 things. The Skeld itself kind of just came together really naturally. Like we knew that loops were good just from the physical playing. The only thing that really changed was we had like, I think we had oxygen where security is now, and it was we had too many sabotages in the same place, so we just switched those. And then we added 1 more room for communications. I don't actually remember when we decided on using vents, but it just felt like it made sense to be able to like move across the map quickly.
I definitely made a point to keep all of the tasks pretty short. Anytime that there's like a longer task, like I think for one thing, engaging the player. So like we tried to minimize the number of like sit and wait tasks. So you have like the uploads, which used to be, I think, like 10 seconds. Now they're like 7 seconds, that sort of thing. And then for anything like inspect samples in medbay, right? So you have to start that one and then come back. The interactions are very short, but then it creates this, timeline of, okay, I should try and flow and then come back, right? We tried to just make a sampling of like, okay, here's a more complex task, like reactor, which everybody loves. It takes kind of a long time. You have to really focus on it. And so we give like a smaller interface so you can maybe see things around you, or like take a large interface so you can't see anything that's happening, but it's a really quick task, so you want to rush through it, right? Those sort of balances. And from there, it's mostly just players will pace themselves at whatever they're comfortable with, what they're good at. Like you give them a spread of tasks and they'll do the ones they like first, or they'll do the hardest ones. When they don't think a meeting's going to get called, they'll just sort it out themselves. It just works. It's just natural. So mostly what we focused on was just like accessibility. So the goal of Among Us was always to make a game that, anyone can play. And so we took, a bunch of friends who normally wouldn't play games with us, and we said, hey, you want to try this? These are the same sort of friends who would gravitate towards Jackbox because they're just super approachable games. They're simple rules, they're, comedic, more social. And when they would hit a snag, be like, I don't know what to do in this task, those are the things we would prioritize above, anything else. And a lot of it worked out just fine, because the way that I would prototype a task is I would just, squares and circles, colors, and if you couldn't tell what is going on, as the person who designed it with squares and circles, like the least amount of information, well, then no one else is going to be able to understand it, even if you give like really good instructions and a nice feedback and all that stuff. So from the very beginning, it was just making everything approachable, and then it just sort of balances itself. Like nothing ends up too hard because everything is designed to be nice.
What was the original idea for the art style for Among Us? Was it coming from sort of like Flash and then perhaps mobile and keeping stuff simplistic, or was there a specific sort of cartoonish, look you were going for?
This question is always weird to me because it's really just like, this is how I draw. And people ask me, oh, how did you decide on the art style? I drew, this is how I draw. I think I tend to always try to push myself a little bit out of my comfort zone to try to draw new stuff. But I have always, it's weird because people always say that the art style is so unique and captivating, but from my end, it's always felt like a limitation to just be like, I only know how to draw in Flash, really. Like, I can't really draw in Photoshop. I can't do realistic things. So you get this Bean character. It was like the 3rd or 4th character that we tried. That's the one we went with.
So does it then feel ridiculous to see like that character have, sort of been poochied out into the world. Like
It's so weird. My uncle sent me a picture of some kid in Sweden wearing an Among Us shirt. I'm like, I don't think that's from our store. And over the summer, I went to the state fair and saw like ugly knockoff plushies just hanging from a pole.
So, how did this simple mobile game turn into a franchise worthy of counterfeit merch? Well, the story of Among Us' success is incremental, based on a series of events that dominoed in just the right order to give it unstoppable online momentum. But in the early days, like most mobile games, the team was struggling to get noticed at all.
Marcus was able to put things on blast at Newgrounds, since he already had Henry Stickmin and was able to pull in a few players that way, but it was still probably like sub 100 for all of the local multiplayer days. Moving it to online helped quite a bit. I don't think we were able to get like a critical mass, like the point where you can always find a game to play, until our first big wave in December after it came out. So that was already after we released on itch and Steam with online support. That's when the Korean wave came. And so then you were able to, it was like 30 concurrent players all the time. It's like 2.5 sort of games at any time, so you could generally get into one of them. But yeah, there was one Korean streamer who had, I think, like 90,000 subscribers or something like that. And people really liked it on their channel. And so, yeah, it drew 10,000 players on like mobile and itch and Steam. From then on for like a week, I just worked like 12 hours days trying to get the server situation under control. And this was like, oh no, we're hitting 300 concurrent users, which was just too much. I had to rework everything in order to support that many. That was the next like 6 months. And it was like Christmas Eve, I was able to get it working and settled. And then I had an okay Christmas. It was like July or August of 2019 when Godinot started streaming Among Us. Godinot, Brazilian streamer with like 2 million subscribers. And so, when you start to hit the like millions of subscriber stages, all of these other large groups, small groups will start to stream things just because the big streamer is doing it. And so that was really, really big. That's the point where we started to be like, okay, we should add more content. Like we should try and properly monetize this. So at the time, we actually started doing in-game messages and stuff and saying like, okay, we're going to add a new map. It's going to be monetized like $4. It'll come with skins. You'll only be able to play it. And so that's when we made Mira, and it was for sure the best selling thing. There was also a decent amount of backlash because that's sort of gatekeeping the map. And so we caved into, you have to buy it in order to host it, and then anyone can join it. And that worked really well, actually. It was a nice balance between, we did work, please pay us, and yeah, you can play this pretty much any time. When we started on Mira, we had already sort of planned out Polis. We knew we were going to release 2 maps in 2019. And so we just assumed like it would all work out. They're both going to sell decently, and that'll be, the content for the rest of the year. And then we would see what the appetite was like. The biggest thing about Mira was just do something different. We learned a lot about choke points and how choke points create a lot of information, and too much information can actually like weaken a map. Like it just makes it a little bit too easy for crewmates. So we tried to like balance it with more easy venting. So that's why you can go pretty much anywhere with the vents. So we just scaled as kind of a kitchen sink. And so we tried to pull elements that were part of the kitchen sink and then just flip them and say like, what if you just unlock it? Or what if you tighten it down really far? And so that's how Mira happened.
And I think I kind of took the back seat on that design for that one, and let Amy take the reins because she was doing all the art. And I was working on Henry at the same time for basically all of Among Us, so I couldn't spend as much time as I wanted on the game.
Was Polis one then that you were sort of taking the lead on?
Mm-hmm. So Polis, I would work on every Saturday, I think, for 3 months or something. The idea for Polis was just like a really open map with like ground that you could walk on. A lot of people in the fandom were like, oh, I want a Mars planet, red planet. I wanted one too, but like, that's the first thing you think of. So we almost made it a snow planet because when I started working on it, we had like a snowstorm. Like, ooh, snow would be really interesting. But then like pure white might be kind of boring. So I went with like purple as well, just because I think purple is a cool, interesting color.
Yeah, I mean, Polis is another one where it's kind of opposite of Mira. We'd never done like a really open layout. And so that was taking Skeldon like the opposite direction. We learned about the vents and like too much choice, I guess, from Mira is kind of a bad thing, and just like too much freedom creates a little bit too much chaos. If the imposter can just be anywhere at any time, that isn't the most fun.
I think just like making sure that there are opportunities for things to happen. Like if you have a room that's like a big U, and if there's nothing in the bottom corners, people will never go there. There's no reason to go there. And if you have like a room that only has a vent in it and someone comes out of there, it's extremely obvious why. So just like, it's like a lot of little things like that. Seeing all the streamers play helped a lot too, because you could see like optimal strategies and see like how the balance works in the highest levels, which is interesting. We had a pretty big issue that I don't know how we didn't notice it before. The med-based scan used to be a common task, and imposters can't do that task. So everyone could just line up and scan, and then, oh, this person can't scan. We haven't tweaked any maps yet. We've talked about like considering it, but for the most part, it's just data for the next one. Like we know, okay, don't do this. We tend to just add like options. Like we had the option to not reveal if the person ejected was an imposter or not. Like that was not an option until last year.
The success level of Mira was much, much higher than the success level of Polis, even though we felt better about how we made the map and how it turned out and everything. So at that point, we hit the end of the year and we were like, we should probably just move on. Like we've made 3 maps, that's pretty good. We're gonna do, like a staged, like free access for the maps, and we'll just turn the whole game sort of free to play and just run out the servers, because we'd already made enough to like make back Among Us's development. So we were feeling pretty good financially. We were just gonna start on the next game, and at that time we were actually basically hinging on Henry getting out in 2020, and that would be like seed money for finishing development of whatever our next game as well. When we announced, it was right at New Year's, maybe a couple days after, when we put the in-game announcement that said, hey, Among Us is done. We're gonna slowly like make the maps free and just sort of demonetize it, and that's it. We're gonna start working on the next game. And so we had a big drop off at that point. Everybody immediately goes dead game. It was also right around that time that the Salt Raiders started playing. So Big Bobby had his like first sort of big YouTube video, and that pulled a lot of European players, which we hadn't really had much traction with in. And so at that point, we actually did start growing again, even after this drop off.
Oh, what the fuck!
We grew from 40 to 60,000 players over the next few months. And that was mostly because basically Twitch started to catch on, and Bobby started to play with their friends. We also had a really good daily deal on Steam. That was like 3 months worth of players in 2 days, right? That was really, really huge. I think that also turned into a ton of wish lists. So then when we got to the summer sale, anyone who didn't get it in the daily deal was sure to get it in the summer sale off of wish list, because we went down to like 75% off or something like that. That is, I believe, where Pluto got Among Us and then seeded it into Soda Poppin'.
Now, how do you play it? What do you do?
Okay, so it is a social deduction game, just like Werewolf or Secret Hitler. So there's going to be 1 or up to 3 imposters, and everyone else is, a crewmate.
And so like that whole effect, how much Corona like affected it, I'm not totally sure. Like, could have happened even without, quarantine, but definitely the quarantine amplified it, like, no doubts.
How, you guys have ended up on the right side of the coin flip in regards to people getting exposed to your game. The game's not good, it's a moot point, right? It's not going to happen either way. But how, as somebody who is like in a creative field and then also working on the biz dev side, is it kind of scary just how much of the fate of a game is down to, and this isn't putting any blame on streamers or saying they have too much power and like that, but just in the ecosystem as it exists, that the word of mouth is controlled by individuals so much as well? Or do you think it's actually better this way than than 10, 15 years ago, where maybe lots of games just simply never found the right publisher or something?
I think I would say that it's better, but it's only better in that it's more of the same. And so the more is good, like more games are getting seen because there are more people to show off these games. Because before it was just, does Steam like put you on the front page? You're a success or you're not. Now it's like, okay, you can potentially get something in the right hands of someone who, if your game is good and interesting in the right way, like it chain reacts and snowballs into getting onto Steam front page or something, right? But like at its core, it doesn't feel much different. You're still just like lucky or not, the people or not. It's kind of the same as it always has been, just, more names. And that's easily the biggest change. Is just before we didn't know anyone, no one knew us, and so, it was all very natural. Now we know so many people. Like, if we wanted to try and get promotion from Nintendo or Microsoft or whatever, we can talk to Nintendo or Microsoft or whatever. Like, if we, at someone on Twitter, they might actually answer, right? All of these things that it's just super different, and it's straight up unfair. Like, the likelihood that if, we make another game, it's going to fail is way lower, because people will at least try it just because, hey, those are the people who made Among Us. I don't think we realized the true scope of things until well after we had peaked. We had canceled the game January 2020. It was middle of July when we said, oh, we're going to make a sequel. So that was a point where we were like, okay, instead of making our other game, we should focus on Among Us before the moment passes, right? And then it was only like a few weeks later where we were like, wait, this is so big, we shouldn't make a sequel. We should instead just keep working on Among Us so that we can get, 100% conversion on all the players who have Among Us now. And so we definitely did not think that that was the peak there. We knew it was still rising. And so into like September, still rising. We knew it was very, very big, but we weren't really keeping track of it. And then October, I think, is where we actually peaked. And so I don't think it was until November, there was like one tweet by one of the like mobile analytics groups or something like that they were like, hey, yeah, Among Us is has the most monthly active users of all time. And that's when we were like, oh, yeah, I guess we do. It was like 490 something million active users for the month of October. That's huge. Okay.
Among Us was a hit. It was selling, it was winning awards, it was on the tip of everyone's tongue. But the team at Innersloth faced a whole new challenge now. How are they going to retain all these players? And how are they going to do it without burning out the team?
They needed to expand the team too, but with so much notoriety, they were now inundated with business people reaching out to get a piece of the pie. Who, if anyone, could they trust?
The game is already bigger than I think we envisioned. Like, even before the streamers played it, when we launched the game, mobile only, one stage, that was kind of the plan. And then we had to put it online so people could play it. And then we're like, well, people are playing it now. Let's maybe add some stages. But the other thing was, anytime we had any like bigger ideas, like, what if we added a role or like abilities or something, we decided just save all that for Among Us 2. Like that can be Among Us 2 stuff. So anytime we had interesting mechanics or things that didn't quite fit into Among Us 1, those would go to Among Us 2. It can be scary. I think if we add new stuff, like it's always going to be an addition that you can turn off if you don't want to play with it. Because people have been like, oh, I love the simplicity of Among Us. I don't want it to change. You can still play it the way you like. After the big wave started hitting and we were getting bombarded with like tons of emails, messages, I had to buy a webcam so I could be on calls. That's when things started to be different. And then the next step was when we started hiring new people, because it had always been just 3 friends. And now, I mean, we're friends with people that we work with, but I didn't know it. I don't think I knew one person that we've hired before. The hardest thing for me has been adjusting to how many more people are involved in the process and like how much earlier things need to be settled and communicating everything. Because it used to be, I think of an idea, I tell Forrest, it gets put in the game. But now it's like, I think of an idea, and then we have to have the programmers pick apart the questions that come up from that idea, and we have to settle on those ideas before anything gets implemented. I used to make games in RPG Maker too, and I would like play the game, find all the bugs, write them down, and just fix them right then. And like, if there's something little that bothers me, I can fix it right away. But something little that bothers me probably doesn't bother Forrest at all. So it gets to sit there for a while, especially if it's a visual thing.
I really wanted to fix the game because at that point, you know, we had like millions of players trying to get in and we could only support like, I don't know, 700,000 or something like that.
But that's all.
That's all. Right. I felt good about it, but also it's not good enough. So that was like the big core thing. And then being super online, I just lurk around Twitter all the time, just all the time. So I was already following like, you know, hundreds of people in game dev, and I just sort of knew Callum, like, you know, it's super duper parasocial. Like he just seemed great, right? I'd happened to, you know, click through his profile and seen Robot Teddy and like, that's kind of interesting. Maybe we'll need that someday. And so I just reached out to Callum. I was totally right, and Callum's awesome, and Robot Teddy was exactly what we needed. He came in with a, you know, bunch of like publishing experience and was like, you know, here's all the things that a publisher would do for you, but you're big enough now that you can just do it yourself. We started calling it the Voltron. And so we have like the arm of porting. These are the people that are, you know, going to help you get on Switch and Xbox and whatever. And so Callum already knew people at Switch and Xbox and whatever. And so we started talking to them at the same time. And so that's a lot of the business from like September till December.
By now, Among Us had forever etched itself into the grand old story of video games, but for the team at Innersloth, a brand new chapter awaited, maintaining the game's community by fixing issues, adding content, and keeping in constant communication with their player base. The story of Among Us isn't half over. In this chapter, we're going to explore the development of the game post-boom and the work that was done to keep it alive. By this stage, the community for Among Us was huge and spread across multiple gaming platforms and social media destinations, so perhaps it's no surprise that their first new hire was somebody dedicated to listening to them.
For Among Us and for Innersloth, my job is to basically talk to the public. So if you hear from Among Us, whether that's through like different partners that we work with, like the different consoles, and like you see marketing things coming out of there, the ads, or like you see an ad from TikTok or something, or you're talking to the social media channels, you see us in the forums, you see newsletters, you see posts anywhere, it's usually like I've had a hand in it or I've written it myself. I'm the like community director at Innersloth, but it's definitely like a whole team effort with a bunch of different partners helping out. I think within the first week of joining, AOC had posted, "Oh, we're gonna play Among Us again."
Though I really hope that I don't get imposter first.
I was roped into it to like play with them, and I was like, oh no, what am I doing? So it was a lot. And I'm also just like a very anxious Among Us player. This was like one of the first things I told the team. I was like, your game makes me so nervous, especially when I'm the imposter. And a lot of people are like, oh, like this must have been like such a great strategy by you. I'm like, no, AOC just tweeted that out, and we found out the same time everyone else found out. Everyone has their own priority within the community, but also within the dev team, right? But I think when it's like the community, it's like you have several like 1,000 people yelling at you, being like, why aren't you doing this thing first? Or why aren't you doing this thing first? Or this thing is clearly the most important thing, or asking for things that aren't feasible, or a lot of them are good ideas. It's just, again, like when you have so many different priorities and people like yelling things at you, trying to like talk to them, making sure that they feel heard and that it does matter, is, I think, the biggest challenge that I have. Among Us itself is inherently just like sometimes a little bit silly and fun. It's like, it's kind of like a universal voice that I can use. The game itself is about murder, and yeah, the art style is very cute. And also I've made like the Among Us accounts, like, I guess people described it as wholesome. I just like to kind of think of it as like a little more just fun, positive side of just being like really encouraging and being like, what? I don't know what you mean by murder and terrible and lying and betrayal. This is just, it's all nice here. And I really do like that kind of difference in like the gameplay style versus the art style, but also versus the brand voice, because I think it makes it really fun and kind of gives it a depth that, I don't know, it keeps it interesting.
Do you think that the game is a pipeline for people to become social media followers, or do you see it happening the other way too? Does it go both ways? Is it hard to read?
Yeah, this one is a complicated question, because I think it can honestly be both, and it depends on kind of what your design pillars are and what your priorities are, right? So, for instance, I think a more visually impactful game has the kind of funnel where it's like social media interest funnels into like the game itself, and it's like, oh, like this is something that people are interested in. But then obviously it's the thing where you need a game that is interesting and a game that is fun to play, and you know, all the kinds of stuff that comes along with it, in order to have like a strong community. A lot of people get caught up in like the initial numbers of like, ooh, like this game's going viral, it's really cool, and then those viral like numbers don't stay. And I think that's the thing that I find really important when it comes to Among Us. It's like, sure, there's the memes, there's all the kinds of like online chatter, but I'm more interested in like, okay, how do I get or make sure that there's an actual community behind this game, like people who are invested in the game, who think it is actually fun. So I think the core gameplay, you know, core game is still like probably the more important thing. And then social media kind of, it tacks onto that, and it's definitely like a very important part of the marketing, and you need people to play your game in order to survive. But the game still needs to be fun.
Unsurprisingly, the success of Among Us led to copycat games eager to get a slice of this new market of social experiences. The team was prepared for this, but one attempt in particular stung worse than the others. Fortnite had become the biggest game in the world by a massive pivot to the Battle Royale genre, inspired by the breakout success of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. So when the now massively successful online shooter added an imposters mode, it took Innersloth by surprise.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to speak for the entire team, but like there were like, you know, the kinds of tweets that we put out when we found out about it, which was, you know, just kind of sadness and a little bit of surprise because we hadn't heard about it, and we like had worked closely with Epic, and it was just kind of that thing of like, oh, I don't know. For me, I just kind of felt a little bit sad because it just would have been like the coolest thing to work with them on it, or to have some sort of collaboration, and especially like as an indie team, I don't know, it felt a little sad, but it's okay, we've talked to them. It's been both difficult and sort of easy. Like it's more easy for us to like approve things going into a game, for example. So like there's the kind of thing that we had with Fall Guys, which was super cool, and just having kind of like Among Us being featured there, like that's definitely a thing that we can do. I think it's more like when it we do want to do things on our side, like with Among Us, like having different things in the game. But again, because we are such a small team, it kind of takes either longer, or it just is like we can't do too many all at once because of the kind of load that it takes on all of us.
With such a large audience, it became essential for the team to get some more technical expertise on board. Forrest was reluctant to allow others to tinker with the back-end and server-side programming on the game, so they needed somebody with enough expertise to calm his fears. Adriel Wallach was no stranger to Innersloth, having worked in the indie game space for a number of years, while also running the popular train-based game jam, Train Jam. Once hired, she quickly got to work reinforcing the now shaky foundations of this wildly popular game. So how exactly did they prioritize updates and changes? And what's it like working on a game with so many players attempting to find exploits?
It was one of those things where it was just like a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity, you know, to be a part of this really big cultural zeitgeist in gaming. It was a lot less overwhelming than I thought it was going to be. At the time, the core Innersloth team was just 4 people, so I was number 5. And I don't even think it hit me right away, but realizing how many people were going to see the stuff I was going to be working on then, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people see this in one day. Holy crap, like, mistakes feel overwhelming when you know that many people are going to see it. There's just a lot of helping clean up all of the fires that had been sort of simmering in the background as everything got so popular. The initial thing that I was working on immediately when I came in, which was a really good way to start getting familiar with the code base, was cleaning up the translations. You know, the game was translated into some language partially, but there were a lot of hard-coded strings that you had to pull out and put into variables and make sure that it's hooked up to the whole translation system, and helping get the game out onto Epic Game Store. And I think those were my first 2 big things. And then starting on, you know, there's an account system now so that you can have an actual account, you can have player moderation. And it's just, those are all those things, like I said, that you don't really think about needing to do until a game goes popular like that. Somebody will always be able to figure out how to do whatever they want, you know, is something that I've been learning through this, of whether it's injecting rich text into their username, and so all of a sudden there's gigantic emojis that get shown that take up the whole screen and you can't do anything. Or, you know, being able to inject in what kind of role, like whether you're a crewmate or an imposter, and sort of taking those kinds of things over. And those are the kind of things where we can prepare for those, and we can have, you know, stuff set up on our server-side code to say, oh, if this person is saying that they're an imposter, but you know the client doesn't say they're an imposter and the server says they're an imposter, something went wrong, bam, they're banned. And you know, stripping out rich text tags whenever we can and making sure that those don't get set across the server. Like, you can do little things like that, but it's like a whack-a-mole kind of situation sometimes, where all of a sudden, you know, somebody posts something on Reddit and it's a funny screenshot of something ridiculous happening in the lobby, and we're like, oh, I see how they did that. Let's, you know, get that into the next patch and everything. You do have to learn to take the loud stuff with a grain of salt, because the loud stuff could be 100 people yelling really loudly versus something that people aren't quite yelling about but needs to happen. And you know those things need to be done, but then again, you look at something like reporting and making sure your community is not toxic, and being able to create systems and have those in place for people to be able to play in a fun way without that kind of worry. You know, that's the thing that you say that has to be done, that has to go first. And so you just kind of look at all the fires and try and balance what people are yelling about, what you know needs to be done in order to create the game and the community that you want to be creating as part of the creation team, and then which ones are actually attainable in the amount of time that you have.
Yeah, I think the thing is that, so Among Us came out in 2018, and they've wanted to do so many things with it, right? Like, they wanted to do the 15-player lobbies before, like, we had announced 15-player, the different roles that they wanted to make, all these other things that I probably couldn't say right now. They had, like, a ton of ideas for the game, so I think more so it's just, like, it's nice to see the kinds of ideas that people come up with, because it just reaffirms, like, oh, like, the ideas that we had originally means, like, people actually wanted. So I wouldn't say it necessarily like all of them have like culminated into like a game feature within the game, but that it's more of like an affirmation of like, ooh, this is an exciting thing for them, so we should prioritize it, or it's something that we should work on.
You know, we've been slowly doing more accessibility things. Obviously, one of the big things is the fact that all the crewmates are different colors, and sometimes you just refer to the crewmates as their colors, which isn't good for colorblind people. And so making sure that we have all the cosmetics visible everywhere that a crewmate is shown, so that way if you have trouble discerning through different shades of colors, that you can now, you know, you look at the vital screen and we make sure that you can see the hat and the skin and everything, so you'd be like, oh, the person with the cowboy hat or the person with the dog pet. They seem minor for people who it doesn't affect, but for people it does affect, it's like, oh, okay, now I can actually play the game, because now I don't have to rely on just the colors, and doing little things like that.
I think we expected like sort of teen and up, just because like lying, kids typically are not super good at lying. There's murder involved, which I guess just gets looked over all the time. Like there's a bunch of things about it where we were like, okay, this is swinging way lower than we thought it would be. And so we had a bunch of like sort of things to think about. Like we think about more now than we did back then, when we assumed it was all like 16 and up.
One of the things that we had to add in was age verification. So if you're under the digital age of consent, you know, you have to ask your parents for permission if you want to be able to access the chat, to be able to chat to people, because there's kids in lobbies with adults, and while 9 times out of 10 that's probably fine, there's always that 10th time, you know, making sure that we're getting proper approval from parents and guardians for their children to be playing this game and being involved in it, and if not, you know, making sure that they still have a way to play it. So we added a quick chat system so that there's, you know, preset things that you can say, so you can still play the game but not be exposed to people saying whatever they want and saying toxic things and exposing children to that. I recently, over the last year, reconnected with a friend of mine. She has a 14-year-old son. So he found out I work on Among Us, and the whole time he's like, you should add 100-player mode, you should do this, you should do this. What are hacks like? Do you get hacked all the time? Oh my gosh. And it's like, wow, okay, yeah, this is actually like a really big game to this kid.
Peak Among Us has likely come and gone, but the continued success of the game leaves Innersloth in an interesting position. Do they bulk up, expand, and make the AAA game of their dreams, or keep things small, indie, and a little bit weird? Let's call a meeting. I wonder what they'll decide.
Growing up, I would make games on paper, and I never really thought about like how to reach that dream. But I grew up in a time where it just is possible, and I was lucky enough to make it. It's really cool. I feel like, I don't want to jinx it or anything, but it seems like the future is bright. We'll keep Among Us going as long as people are playing, but me and Forrest will start working on a new game at some point.
I believe we're at 12 people now for the core Innersloth team. And so while I can see us, you know, maybe growing a little bit more, not a ton more, you know, there's no real need to. You know, we don't need 200 people. We don't need to become this huge studio or anything. It's more a sense of, oh, now we have the time and the ability and the privilege to be able to beef up just a little bit. Let's actually get the people power that we need in order to make the thing that we want to make now.
I think what I would say for like the future culture of the gaming team is that some change and like some improvements and all that, but I pretty much feel like it's still going to kind of have that brick and mortar feel, like a little bit of like indie messiness that I love about indie games.
It's super exciting in that it means we can do bigger things. And so we're going to do bigger things. But at the same time, everything has like this element of it has to be bigger because Among Us. It needs to be good, really good, because Among Us. And like everything is sort of driven by this, well, people are actually going to notice now, so don't mess up. Having the freedom and just like runway and ability and assistance to do great things is, totally worth it. So I'll just try and live up to it.
I think I've mostly detached myself from thinking about the numbers on the bad side, the low side, because the numbers, as far as I know, are just sort of steady. Definitely not anywhere near the height of the popularity this time last year, but you still see people talking about it all the time. It's still everywhere. I'm a little bit of a comfort in the knowledge that we're still popular enough that bootleg merch is everywhere. I don't think it's going to go anywhere for a long time. And even if it's never as peaky as it was last year, which how could it? That's such a once in a lifetime situation. Enough people just enjoy it, and we're still doing things and keeping it fresh and everything, that I don't see where it can just disappear. I'm trying this new thing where I don't worry about things that aren't happening. So I'm trying to be like, yeah, everything's fine.
That sounds like a good skill. I should learn that. We should all learn that one.
It's very new. It's taken lots of therapy to get here, but I'm trying real hard to not worry about things that aren't happening.
I think I've seen the trajectory for my career as being ending up in the creative director scene. Like, I just thought about this a few days ago. Like, what if I wanted to make a 3D game? I don't know how to do anything 3D. Forrest, I don't think, knows how to code very much 3D, but we could do it. We could just start hiring people and do it.
Does that feel exciting, or does that feel like an inevitability of the career progress? You find yourself, you Peter Principle yourself up to a management position, and then that's it.
It's a double-edged sword. It's like having the control is really nice to me, but I will probably miss some of the boots on the ground art type of stuff. So I'm not in a rush to get there.